supercars like this Countach are great for picking up girls. They're usually the kind of girls that leave glitter all over your interior and then later on write bad words about you in your hood with a key, but usually everything leading up to that point is pretty awesome. This car, when I first saw it 30 years ago, I thought this is the most creative, crazy thing in the world. But I never looked at this car as a race car. I always looked at this car as a show car, like the Sabre.
Okay, yeah, something that's not really meant for the track, but it's meant to wow you. It's meant to, just be an expression of
there you go.
Of
That's
you or
exactly
your character.
It. Wow me is exactly what. Obviously, still has that engine sound though.
The best way to describe this is because obviously everybody compares it to the Lamborghinis of nowadays that have that really throaty sound, which this still does too, but to me it's an Italian muscle car. Like, it reminds me of like the 60s muscle cars that we had here in the States, but it's the Italian version of it to me.
I feel like I'm Charlie Brown and he's Lucy and he's about to pull the football from me because I know that there's some things about this that Tony doesn't like, and what are they?
Well, actually, let's talk about the things I do like first.
Go.
Because scissor doors, hello. What a wow thing to have, and this is the first car that it came out on.
Oh, I didn't know that was oh no, there was that Alfa Romeo, but I think it was a concept car that had the scissor doors.
Well, sorry, first Lamborghini.
Yeah, first Lamborghini, yeah. But you're right, the scissor doors were quite an insane thing when they came out. Now you can see them in every McLaren ever made. So, I mean, it's getting to be...
A little bit different, though. That's like a dihedral door.
Yeah, and I know, but it's still kind of the same thing because when I drive the wife's McLaren and you flip it up it still attracts attention.
Oh, yeah.
And it's you know what, oddly enough, it's actually a pretty good way to get in and out of a car, but it's not... I went to look at a Countach many years ago to go buy one, and it was a 1988-89 version. And I'll tell you what, I struggled to get in and out of that car. I mean, it wasn't... I was dating this girl that worked at the carnival. She could easily get in and out of it. I mean, she wasn't a trapeze artist. She was part of the freak show. But it was easy. It was easy for her to get in and out of it. But I struggled. And as a matter of fact, I didn't buy it because part of that was that I couldn't look cool getting in and out of that car. It was like the Zinger one. We did that Zinger, which, God, I love that car. I hadn't figured out a way to get in that without looking awkward.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's a way, but my biggest problem is that everything on it was so beautiful that I didn't want to touch it.
Right,
so you almost wanted to hover into it. If I would have probably sat down like you're supposed to and flipped your legs over, it would have been cool, but God, I just didn't want to scratch anything.
Right.
And that's the thing with this car. You see these cars. 20 years ago, this car you could buy it used for, $60,000.
Well, new they were what, 72,000?
Yeah,
starting
absolutely, yeah. And now they're just literally insane in price. Once again,
$300,000 and up.
Same deal. You got to be careful getting in and out of this because there's nothing on a Lamborghini that's cheap.
Right.
So I mean, if you're scuffing this thing up, I mean, it's going to be expensive to fix.
And those parts too. You have to find those parts somewhere. I mean, it's not like they're reproducing these parts all over the place. So you have to find some like new old stock that someone's keeping in their garage and.
Unless you get Lamborghini to build you one from scratch.
That probably could happen. I mean, Patrick and I were just talking about it. Lamborghini just redid the LP400, which was the original Countach, 25,000 hour restoration. And also those viewers that saw our other Countach video, the new one that just came out, a lot of the styling cues that are in that came from the LP400. So we're going to talk about a couple different models that happened between 74 and 1990 today, but that was originally based on the LP400, which is what they just redid.
One of the things that I like about Lamborghini cars, especially these Countaches and stuff like that, and we're going to exclude the Urus in this conversation because to me that's really an Audi
that's
anyways.
An Audi.
Right, exactly. Is that they're two-seaters. And the good thing about having a two-seater is that MILF you're trying to pick up, she can't bring her kid. And I'll drink to that. Cue the whiskey, girl.
So there has been a lot of different variations of the Countach model. So 9 different variations of it, which had anywhere from a 4-liter to a 4.8 to a 5.2 liter. And what's really neat, especially for our viewers, and everybody knows that Patrick and I love Pagani, is that the 25th anniversary edition of this car was actually designed by Horacio Pagani. And that's when he...
Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea that he did that. I wonder who was in charge of that periscope idea, though, because I got a chance to sit in one of these Countachs that had that periscope, and maybe it's just my height or something, I don't know, but when I looked through the periscope with the rearview mirror, all I saw was trees. I mean, it didn't look behind for me at all. It had no function whatsoever. These days, of course, you'd have a camera. But when they moved the carburetors from the outside to the inside, they put that hump in there, so it made the total rearview mirror completely...
I didn't know that. I was wondering why that, like, they even had the rear view window in there, sorry, the rear window, I guess you could say, because you can't see out of it, and it's just got these big bumps, and it's like, why did they put that there in the first place? But...
Yeah, but at the same time, is honestly, if you're a truck driver, because I haul my race cars to the thing, I don't have a rearview mirror, and I back that thing into position all the time. So I mean, if you're a Lamborghini driver and you really honestly need to get out and sit up and do that thing, to me, it looks kind of dorky. I mean, I know they love it. I know it's a thing, but
it's kind of cool, kind of like a race car driver kind of thing.
Nah, I would imagine me doing that in my rig backing up. You know,
well, yeah, you'll look like a goof doing that.
Well, I'm just saying.
You're in a Countach.
Learn to use your mirror so you don't have to do that. I'm just not a fan of that.
Well, that's the whole point of having a Lamborghini in a car like this. You really don't need a rear view mirror because you should be going faster than everybody else.
The arced rear quarter panels. I really like that. When I first saw that design, you know,
like the flares.
Yeah, no, the flares I love.
Right.
And we're gonna do that Hellcat Red Eye coming up. I love that car. Added the flares, and I didn't like. This is a weird thing. I didn't like the flares on the Hellcat Red Eye wide body stuff until you brought up doing this Countach, and I saw the flares on this. Now I get it. I see it. Yeah. I see it. And there's a lineage because Dodge used to own Lamborghini. So
really?
Yes, Dodge was heavily involved. The V10 that Lamborghini
right,
designed.
For the Viper.
Absolutely, yeah, for the Viper.
Well, this
that's the Lamborghini.
After this, though.
Yeah, well, I know, but what I'm saying is that you're almost picking up on that lineage from one car to the next, to me, because I wasn't a fan of the wide-body Hellcat until you brought up bringing this Countach at the same time. And I looked at it and I said, oh, wow, there's a precedent for that. And so I was digging it, and I like it, because I like the scallop cutout, but I like it better with the flares.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, at least for me, in my opinion, you make anything a wide body, I'm gonna love it. I love the wide body. Just to me, it makes it squattier or wider, and it looks sweeter. So.
The thing about this car, though, is that you've got expenses in owning one of these Countachs, and I'm not talking about the maintenance with them. Because you can't drive one of these wearing jeans and a T-shirt. So, I mean, I've got to go find my favorite van down on the other side of the town in the alley and buy that Armani shirt and that watch if I'm going to wear this. If I'm driving this thing, because you know me, I like to be comfortable when I ride around, but you can't step out of this Countach in jeans and a T-shirt. You've got to play the part.
Got to Miami it up. Which, speaking of Miami it up, maybe you could help me with this, but the passenger side vanity mirror, it actually just came out, so you could hold it. Now, I don't know what you would do with a portable mirror back in the 80s, but I'm guessing.
If you get a chance, check out our Surviving the Cocaine Cowboys episode. That'll probably give you an idea what you can do with that mirror in the 80s in your Countach. Every piece of glass on this car is flat.
Which is the strangest things, because I remember looking at some of the models, and I would get down, or not the models, but the actual cars themselves, and I get down just to see, because I was expecting a curve, but you're right, it's completely flat, it's not like curved glass was a new technology. It had been used in tons of cars before. But
the crazy thing about this is that, it looks like an extremely aerodynamic car, but it's in 71, the Triumph Spitfire was just as aerodynamic as this.
Oh, man. And it looks like it's aerodynamic. I mean, every part of this car looks like the wedge shape is going to cut through the air, but the spoiler you were saying, the spoiler is not doing anything. It probably actually hurts the car more.
The spoiler probably adds about 7 to 10 mile an hour worth of drag, some guy was calculating out. Because if you take a look at it, it doesn't have any angle of attack on it whatsoever. As a matter of fact, they were worried when they built this car because the Mira, from what I understand, had a real problem with sudden oversteer when you lifted off the throttle. It would get real light in the back end and try to swap ends on you. So when they came out with this car, they came out with a spoiler concept and design thinking that they would have to put some angle of attack on it, but this car didn't have that problem whatsoever. But from what I understand, this spoiler wasn't even legal to be installed on the vehicle, so they got around that by installing the spoilers on the cars out in the parking lot.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
because
crazy.
it wasn't done at the assembly in the factory. They would assemble them as an aftermarket deal out in the parking lot and then ship them out. So they got the spoiler into the U.S. without having it to go through all the rigmarole to getting it made legal.
It's kind of like those racing harnesses too in some of these cars that they won't actually sell you the racing harnesses. They'll give them to you, but they won't install them. Like you have to have somebody else install them for it. I think the Ford GT was like that most recently.
Yeah, and even the '69 Z28 302 cars. Those cars I don't think they had emissions tests for the dual carburetor option. So if you ordered that, it came in the trunk. You had the intake manifold and both carburetors in the trunk.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
So it was pretty cool. You just had to put it on yourself, which in a small block Chevy is a 2-3 hour job, not a real big deal. Do you hear an alarm going off? Well, if you race with turbos, you've been there. And that interesting thing on this is a connecting rod out of a McLaren. And now that one's that's hit some boost beyond what McLaren has rated it for. But from what I understand, and it was a guy that's in this website where they posted this, said that he's torn apart stock McLaren engines and had the rods are already bent.
And you said that this was more of like a 720S issue or 765 LT.
Yeah, because I think it's right around the 700 horsepower area where they were really starting to run into problems with these rods.
Okay.
And I think if you know anything about racing and performance engines, you'll know that when the boost starts getting up, these things will run into problems. But it's really, a lot of the times, it's at the lower RPMs because it can really pry on the rod for a long time. So if you want to do all that heavy boost stuff, just make sure the RPMs are up and you've got a better chance of having the rod survive.
Well, I'm just excited that it's not affecting the 675 LT, which is my
favorite.
Yeah,
Tony's favorite car. Going to this car, it's got every single one of these is a manual transmission. When I was young and I was learning how to drive a stick, it was like the first time that you watch porn, is that you see the girl screaming and having a good time, and then you realize that you're the problem. This car is only available with a manual transmission. So you had better be good at driving a manual transmission.
And the crazy thing is, about speaking of the manual transmission, which I didn't know, is it's a dog leg manual pattern that's in it.
Yeah.
And it has the reverse lockout because they didn't want you accidentally throwing it into reverse while you're trying to go forward, obviously. And I didn't know that was an issue because all the cars nowadays, you can't put it in reverse. It has like an auto lockout pretty much until the car is stopped.
But if you do learn how to drive a stick, you'll learn, especially on a lot of these Italian engines, because they don't make any power. This one's a good example. Nothing below 4,000 RPMs. This thing is an absolute dog below 4,000 RPMs. So you got to keep the RPMs up. You got to whip on this car if you're going to drive this car. You can't drive this car like you take a Dodge Viper, for example. You can get in that car and just let the clutch out, and it'll take off. You can slip your foot right off the side of the clutch and dump it. It won't stall. But these cars aren't like that. They don't have anywhere near that kind of torque to get going. You've got to rev them up. You've got to get them going. Then, you can slip the clutch really easy and make them go. You can't sidestep it. They'll just quit.
Well, the crazy thing is, too, is that the braking period on this car, speaking of high RPMs, you can't go above 6,000 RPMs within the first 4,000 miles.
Oh, really?
And these cars don't have that many miles on them. Shoot, you probably only drive yours about 1,000 miles a year.
Yeah, I don't drive mine
It would take you over
very much,
4 years to break it in.
But I have a tendency to get in a lot of wrecks, so it's usually best that I don't drive a lot. Because, especially with this car, because if you get in a wreck with this car and flip upside down, there's a hammer under the dash so you can break the window and get out. Because I never thought about that, but with those doors, just like the going Mercedes, that has like dynamite explosions.
Yeah, mini explosions.
Yeah, mini explosions that blow the doors off. This has got a little hammer that you break the window. Well, I'm not sure if you've seen that window, but I don't think there's a lot of Americans that can fit out that window.
Well, that plus Jay Leno was saying on his show that if you have to decide when you're sitting upside down, do I want to break this $5,000 window or should I just sit here for a while and get cooked?
I've been trapped in a car before, and you see, when you are trapped by your feet in a car, you hear everything and you smell everything.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because man, that's a scary, scary time. So I think that if I was upside down, I wouldn't care about that window. I would break every window in front of me to get that. 14-inch wheels. That's what the original one came on.
And then 15s later on, but a 345 tire.
Yeah, and it's crazy looking too, because you don't look at these Countachs with, I mean, a 15-inch wheel is pretty ridiculous today, but it still looks right on that car.
It does. And I love that design they had that I think came out towards the 80s version of it with the revolver style. It's got like the holes in it. I think it's such a cool design, and some of the wheel companies have actually remade that style of wheel for some of the newer Lamborghinis, and I love that vintage heritage look that they make for it.
Lamborghini has never really been into Formula One. I mean, they've never really raced this car either. I mean, Lamborghini's a great company to build this kind of car as kind of a dress run-around car, but they've never really been into performance much. Back in the 80s, 80, 83 era, as a matter of fact, they had as a matter of fact, here's Z. She was in Monaco recently and saw a Countach there in Monaco. And I said, hey, did you know that back in 1980 to 83, Formula One used a Countach as a pace car at Monaco?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
and it won actually at Quail this year. It won some awards at Quail.
Yeah,
because one of the guys down here that does like basically restorations and these high-end classic cars,
right?
They took it out to Quail and it won some awards. It had the light bar on top of it, which looks kind of ridiculous, but hey,
this car is definitely one of those cars that you could get in a love affair with, because from what I understand, you could drive this as a daily. It was really that reliable.
Because I saw reviews of this car, not reviews, but on some of the older car shows that are no longer playing right now, but they had discussed that some of them, they just idolized this car so much that when they finally got the chance to drive it, they said they wish they never had. They said that it ruined the car for them. Now, again, you can't compare this car to cars nowadays. You have to do it to where it was, because even the most horsepower engine was 455, but that was a ton of horsepower back then. That was like the end-all be-all.
Interesting on the 455 horsepower version is that to come to America, they had to go to that Bosch K-Jetronic fuel injection system, and it actually lost about 25 to 35 horsepower going to that.
Yeah.
So it made a little less power, and it lost that sound. The downdraft Weber cars, the European cars, those definitely sounded the best. So you definitely wanted to, if you were going to get one of those, definitely get the carbureted versions, because they sounded stunning. As a matter of fact, I think that this era of Lamborghini engines has a really epic sound.
Sure.
That I love the sound of the new ones, but it's a different sound.
Yeah.
This is absolutely epic, and I really love the sound of it, and I think it's time to rate this thing. I hear a squealing noise. I think we need to rate this car a little bit different than we normally do cars, because I want to do 2 ratings on this. Because the problem with this car is that it's like and we've talked about this before, is that every Lamborghini burns up the era that it's in, because it goes to the absolute extreme in styling of the era. And what that does is it time stamps the car, so that when you end up being done with it in 10 years, it's completely out of style. And that's exactly what this has done. This car is completely out of style. And so if you gave it a rating right now, it would be really, really low, and it's unfair to the car to do that.
Yeah, because this was iconic. This was a poster
today,
child.
let's do the rating as it's 1990, and we're going to rate it in styling.
Okay, wow,
so where are you at?
Perfect. I mean, styling that way, I'm pretty high.
I am too.
Because I'm actually at an 80 right now for styling, because to me, this was iconic. This was a poster child. It should probably even be higher than that, but every kid during this era had this poster, and I had one myself, and this was not my era. So
I actually higher than that, because this car, when it came out, was as shocking to me as when the Ferrari Enzo came out. Because the Ferrari Enzo was an amazing, stunning, crazy thing. This may actually be even more stunning. So when it came to styling on this one, I gave it a 90.
Nice. Okay.
Okay, but now let's just, for the heck of it, because it is, where are you at today?
Well, today, I mean, but which model? You know?
Well, let's do the best one. We've both agreed on this before, because Tony and I get in a lot of arguments at the bar, and we actually both agreed on this. The 500S version.
5000S.
Yeah, that version, that 1985 era, in black.
Black with the gold rims and the tan interior.
Yeah, that's the one to do.
Yeah.
So if you had to give that one a styling rating, where would you be at?
If I gave that one a styling rating on today's, I would probably be a little bit more than half. So I would say...
Wow, we're really close.
Yeah, about like 55 maybe?
Okay, I'm not that high. I'm at 45.
Okay.
So we're in the ballpark. In performance, this car wasn't even very fast when it was out. It was always 170, 180 mile per hour car.
Yeah, so that
which was decent, but there was Ferraris that were really, really fast in the era, and it's because the aerodynamics of this car are a train wreck.
It weighed a ton.
I can't give this a real high performance rating. It's not awful, but I gave it a 42.
Okay, yeah, 42 for that. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I actually gave it a 40 in performance. So,
all right, well, I'm definitely going to toast this thing because it deserves it. Has our respect. Congratulations, Lamborghini. You got a toast. Well, thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. And you know what they say: if you have an opinion that's different than ours, keep it to yourself.